my part of the session, and I would like to share some thoughts on it. I am CS Raj Kapadia. I am a practicing company secretary. I am having my own setup, peer-reviewed firm in Mumbai itself. I am a program graduate with IIM Ahmedabad. I am also a member of various tax committees of professional bodies, including ICSI, the Chamber of Tax Consultants, and I have contributed multiple articles on various professional forums. I hope the slide has changed. Please confirm, sir.
Yeah, it has
Slide
changed, Raj.
changed, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Just to give, so we had a very wonderful first session by Soumya ji, wherein she has in great detail she has discussed the provisions as well as the implications of that and how it will affect. So I'll not to avoid duplication, I'll just be very brief. So India is practically the first country to have a regulation on CSR under the Companies Act. So right from the time when it was at a consultative stage, the Companies Act 2013, there were amendments, there were discussions, bills. So this specific provision was probably even at that time, India was a leader in having CSR as this mandatory provision under the Act itself. It is governed by Section 135 of the Act, along with the rules therein, and also the activities which can be undertaken as a CSR are mentioned in Schedule 7, which forms part of the Companies Act 2013. The section begins with every company. So there is no differentiation as such. So we can see in the Companies Act itself that there are separate regimes for a public company, separate for a private, and a small company, there is a separate regime in a way. But CSR provision is for all companies. It is applicable provided the company fulfills the criteria which is mentioned in Section 135, whether it is turnover, net profit, as well as the net worth. We have discussed that in the first session. So if the company is fulfilling the criteria, CSR provision is applicable to that company. Earlier, broadly the provisions were mainly on you either spend the CSR applicable amount, or if not spent, then you give the reason. The board of directors were required to give reason for not spending the CSR amount, and that was it. But now there have been significant amendments wherein the applicable CSR provisions, the applicable CSR amounts have to be mandatorily spent in the projects which are stated in Schedule 7. The projects can be either ongoing projects or other than ongoing projects, wherein annually the applicable amount can be spent. If the amount is not spent on an ongoing project, the provisions are there that amount has to mandatorily be deposited in a separate account in a form of an escrow account, which is for unspent CSR account. So if for this financial year, by 31st of March, if the amount is not spent, then by 30th of April, which immediately follows the closure of the year, by 30th of April, that amount on an ongoing project has to be mandatorily deposited in a separate unspent CSR account. And if that amount also is not deposited in a separate account, then by 30th September, which immediately follows the closure of the financial year, by 30th of September, it has to be deposited or donated to an entity which is mentioned in Schedule 7 of the Companies Act 2013. So what are those entities? Briefly, if we can discuss, the Clean Ganga initiative, the PM CARES fund, and other such 3-4 funds are mentioned wherein donations can be made. CSR is basically business contributing to society and the environment. So that is how CSR is to be taken. If we see the background as well, the intent when these provisions were being introduced to begin with as an act, the Section 135 which was being introduced, at that time the intent for which it was there was that basically companies are operating in various jurisdictions, various areas. So preference need to be given to those local areas where the companies are operating, because in those areas, the people in those areas, the environment, the infrastructure in those areas is what is most affected by the company's operations. So preference to be given to local areas. The idea is not to make profit from CSR. The business makes profit, so generates surplus, and then certain percentage, the 2% of average profits of the last 3 years, so that is to be spent in a as a CSR activity. It is not such a large amount as such. It is not to make profit. It might generate, so the project might generate a surplus, and that surplus also has to be disclosed in the annual return as well for CSR. The idea is also to give a better quality of life to people that companies are working with. Again, it is basically the company is taking something from the society generally, whether it is minerals, whether it is infrastructure, the air around, the environment, it is all affecting. And the idea is to give a better quality of life as a return to the nearby areas. It is not a cess or a tax, so no amount is going to the government. It is basically, it is to invest into communities where the companies are drawing revenue from. It is a part of revenue which is earned by the company. It is returned to the community for their betterment and welfare. It is also, the focus is an inclusive and a sustainable development for the company. That the company is also, in a way, the companies are able to carry out their respective business activities in a sustainable and in an ongoing way, inclusive, that not just the company, its owners, its management, but the entire stakeholders, not just the shareholders, and everyone who is directly or indirectly impacted. It results in an inclusive growth, and contribution is towards well-being of people, and in general a good governance. So we'll see how the good governance and the transparency provisions are also included in the act itself. Excuse me. So what are the focus areas? As we said, that the areas wherein CSR spending can be made are provided in Schedule 7 of the Companies Act 2013. So very briefly, not going in too much of a detail, very briefly, CSR activities can be taken in eradicating hunger, poverty, also to promote a well-being, including preventive healthcare as well. That also forms a part. Promoting education, general and gender equality. Now, education also includes skill enhancement and employability in general, enhancing employability among the people. That is also a part of education. So, as we read through the various items, care has to be taken that these items have to be interpreted liberally. So, not a strict interpretation, but a liberal interpretation. That if anything which is not specifically provided, but it can form a part of that, then also that activity can be considered as one of the items of Schedule 7. That also is something which is in a way promoting CSR. Healthcare, sanitation, safe drinking water, as we talked about Clean Ganga project, which is specifically mentioned in this Schedule 7. So this also forms a part. Environmental sustainability, rural development, protecting national culture, heritage, benefiting armed forces and the steps taken for benefiting armed forces, promoting sports, including Olympics and Paralympics. We recently saw a Paralympic team which has done which produced fantastic results, uh, getting so many medals for India. R&D in various fields, including the entities which are also specified in Schedule 7. If any such contributions are made for such entities, then they will also be be included as CSR activities, including contribution to entities engaged in promoting SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. The world has also undertaken respective pledges for making the world a sustainable and a better place to live in. So the UN has 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which the world also, the governments across the world have taken respective pledges to ensure that those sustainable development goals are met. So even for under CSR, if the contributions are made for such entities who are engaged in such projects, then they will also be recognized as CSR activities. Any disaster management relief or rehabilitation, so PM CARES Fund, which was launched at the time of COVID when India was dealing with a major pandemic of COVID. So also like such measures also are included in CSR. So as we can see, it covers a very wide range of activities which actually can be taken up by the respective companies. So briefly, the governance aspects, the disclosures, which in a way lead towards a better transparency. So companies, wherever is applicable, wherever the companies fall under the criteria which is mentioned, whether it is turnover, net worth, or the net profit criteria, they are needed to form a committee. They are needed to formulate the CSR policies which will be undertaken and upload the same on the website. So website has to include the entire CSR policies, the initiatives taken, the projects which the companies are working on, the annual return itself which is there for CSR entirely has to be uploaded on the website. The impact that the activities have created also. Monitoring the impact, including impact assessment. So impact assessment is mandatory as per the criteria again which is mentioned in the act, but in general also, instead of just like spending and done and it's done, it is in a way the annual reporting requirements are such that the overall impact of that, it is spent in which area, where the amounts are spent, what is the asset, if any, which is generated. If it is an ongoing project, then whether any asset is generated, the surplus generated out of such assets. All those details are a part of annual return. Also, the impact that is the projects is on having on the communities, on the environment, on the surroundings. All of that has to be detailed in the annual return. The companies may either spend the CSR amount through itself or through any entity which we have discussed in the first session as well. The entities, whether it is a Schedule 8, the Section 8 companies, or whether any registered trust or a society or any special entity formed by the government or through any special act of parliament. All such entities also can carry out CSR activities. So the companies can make the donations of the required amounts through such entities, and then the entities in turn would carry out the activity. Only thing is that the if it is through a trust or a Section 8 company, then there is also a requirement of an established track record, so that a safeguard has been kept that yes, that entity has been carrying out the underlying activity for a period of 3 years at least. So that is there. And also that entity which is the implementing entity, the implementing agency has to be mandatorily registered with the NCA as a CSR entity, and a CSR identification number has to be obtained mandatorily. Preference is to be given to local area in which company operates, which we have discussed already. Board report has to contain the disclosure, the gist of the policy, the annual return with the disclosures which we have discussed. All that forms part of the board report and also is uploaded on the website. In turn, auditors, the statutory auditors in the CARO also are required to make to specifically mention whether the CSR amounts have been duly spent, whether there is any unspent amount, whether any such amounts are set off. So all those also are mandatorily to be mentioned in the CARO as well report. And also company, along with filing of annual financial statements, wherever applicable, the companies have to also file an annual return in CSR2 with the NCA, and which would contain all these disclosures. So this is a part of governance and transparency which is there. the details are available wherever CSR is applicable. The details are made available on the company's website, as well as available as public documents as well, along with the financial statements on the MCA portal. We discussed about the sustainable development goals as well, that the world has undertaken these 17 promises, and that the entire world is making short efforts towards that. While SDGs, there is a separate reporting requirement under the SEBI laws, which actually we are now focusing on CSR. But if we go through the SDGs, we will see that in a way India under Schedule 7 has already been undertaking. So all those activities are also provided in Schedule 7 as well. Say for example, SDG 1 and 2, which talks about no poverty and zero hunger. We have that item in Schedule 7 as well, eradicating hunger, poverty, malnutrition. So say for example, Zomato's initiative of Feeding India, which is undertaking this activity. SDG 3 we have for good health and well-being. Again, it is included as promoting healthcare, including preventive healthcare as well. So not just healthcare, but preventive also. The initiatives taken form a part of CSR activities. The quality education, which is SDG 4, is also there. The initiative for promoting education also including skill enhancement. So not just education, but also skill enhancement and employability, which really, I mean, these are the activities which really make a significant difference in the entire stakeholders and the community where the company operates in. SDG 5 is gender equality. That is also there in Schedule 7, which is promoting gender equality. We have an example of Godrej Consumer Products. Their CSR initiative is Saloni or Salon, Salon and I, or you can call it Saloni, which is basically focusing on women and like teaching them the hairstyling and and also increasing their employability quotient and also skill enhancement. So we have that significant example which is there of Godrej Consumer Products. Next, we have also SDG 6, which is clean water, sanitation, and we have that in the Schedule 7 as well, which is sanitation, maintaining the quality of soil, water, which we have discussed, the Clean Ganga Fund, which is mentioned in Schedule 7. So any donation to Clean Ganga Fund is also recognized as a CSR activity. We have SDG 13, which is climate action. So we have reducing environmental impact through sustainable practices. Infosys has projects under this criteria. Next, SDG 14 and 15, which is life on land and life below water. We have ensuring environmental sustainability, ecological balance, flora, fauna, animal welfare. We have the Bajaj Autos CSR project, which is canine, which is dealing with animal welfare. SDG 13, again, it is a repeat. So basically, SDGs are focusing on sustainability, not just for the social aspect, but also for environmental and also governance aspect. Whereas CSR, the focus is more towards social responsibilities, but we have seen that there are plenty of similarities as well of SDG with respect to CSR. Certain examples under the Indian context, of course, we have Tata Group as the premium example, and we will also take a moment to remember the legend himself. We lost recently the legend Sri Ratan Tata, and we will take a moment to remember his legacy. Whenever we talk about governance, whenever we talk about CSR, we have the first name which comes in most of the occasions is, of course, of the legend himself. So that is the legacy, and the Tata Group in all focuses on education, on healthcare, on rural development. Then we also have Infosys Foundation. Infosys Foundation, as we have discussed, we have initiatives in healthcare, rural upliftment as well. We have Mahindra and Mahindra, which is focusing on education, the Nanhi Kali initiative. Nanikali is also very interesting. Wherein the companies have option of like they can manage the entire education of the girl child. They can donate, they can contribute in a way, and also as an impact assessment, or the real impact, the reports and details are also shared of the progress which the particular girl child has made. So it is very interesting initiative as well. They are also into for like preventing the forest, which is through Haryali initiative. Zomato, of course, we have discussed feeding India initiative, and EIH Limited, which is the leading hotel chain, which is the Oberoi Hotels. They have a project Saksham, which is well-being of underprivileged children, reducing carbon footprint, green team, waste cycling. I mean, we and also on a personal example as well. CSR basically it can be taken on one side. It can be taken as just another liability for a company, that okay, we have to spend 2% and just spend and get it over with. Or we can actually inculcate the CSR example throughout all the levels of a corporate. So from a personal example, I have observed that one of the leading hotel chains in India, I mean, I was having dinner with like my some of my friends, and there was a this water bottle which was on the table. A waiter came and like took away the water bottle, which was actually we had not purchased it from the hotel, but we had it from outside. The waiter took away the water bottle, and his supervisor came and gave the bottle back to us and stated that, oh, it was a plastic water bottle. This hotel has a policy of zero plastic. And the waiter thought that we had asked for water, and someone from the team itself gave this plastic water bottle, and therefore he took it away and he was giving the regular water. But then this was where I mentioned that as a culture itself, this it's a good practice, like protecting this like zero plastic, all these as a example. It can be inculcated throughout all the levels in organization, and as an organization culture itself, this the sensitivity towards CSR, towards social responsibility, can be created. So briefly, what is the basically the importance for entrepreneurial ventures? It attracts the socially conscious consumers and investors. Of course, if the entity takes active steps towards CSR, then investors would be keen that yes, entity is also focusing on sustainability from a social point of view. It is being sensitive towards its ecosystem, towards its local areas. The governance and disclosure requirements which the companies have to make, they add a layer of reliability for the ventures. Stakeholders can view the project details on the website itself with respect to the policies, the steps taken, projects executed, also the impact assessment as well, wherever applicable. All these details are there on the website. There are also mandatory filings which are prescribed. There are audits, assessments have been provided for. All these also are helping towards the good governance aspect. Entrepreneurs who have built a leading ventures can take it up as a project and inculcate CSR aspects in operations. This is about the example that we just had of this leading hotel chain, that across as a culture itself, CSR project can be given across all levels. And it is basically the entrepreneur's passion and personal attention through which the entrepreneur would have built their organization, like big names, all that started from somewhere, and they are also the leading example as far as CSR is also concerned. So, and they can with their personal attention, with their passion, entrepreneurs can also take up CSR as projects and inculcate it in organizations. It differentiates the startups in a highly competitive market. It also builds trust with stakeholders and communities, and there is a added layer of due diligence.
Excuse me, Rajji.
Yes,
I
sir.
would like to request you to conclude it in 30 seconds as we
Yes,
have
yes, I will.
thanked you on
Yeah, yeah.
the
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, sure. So it builds trust and it also adds a layer of due diligence for CSR and sustainable practice. So at the time of investment, wherever startups are there, investments also, it adds a layer, further layer of due diligence check that what initiatives for CSR have been taken. To conclude, and in a way to call for action, is that it is a key long-term investment. It is an investment for startup and not an expense. The entity can start small and then scale CSR along with growth. They can maintain the transparency. They can align CSR with companies' values for the impact. And of course, after the amendments, the projects can be taken up in a planned manner. Funds also can be parked in a separate account and over the period of 3 years can be used. And promoters need to really expand the horizon to include CSR, as it would lead ultimately to a sustainable practice. So with this, I conclude my part of the presentation and I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity, and I hand it over to the organizer.